If you aren't watching The White Lotus, then what have you been doing with your life?
Tsunami.
Every week when an episode drops, the whole internet is talking about this show, what happened, how shocked they are, most recently the season finale, and how they feel about it. In today's video, I want to break down important lessons that we can learn as creative people from The White Lotus TV show. There aren't particularly any spoilers in this video, so you can 100% keep watching, and you can keep watching if you've never watched the show because these tips will still be relevant. Obviously, it'll help if you know who I'm talking about, but they are overarching big things that anybody can apply whether they've seen the show or not. So to give a really, really quick overview of The White Lotus, it is a very popular TV show and it's in its third season that's just finished. It centers around a group of people who go to a hotel, a luxury hotel called the White Lotus. And it's basically just the guests and the staff. They're all of the characters, and it'll just center around the things that happen with them and their family dynamic, the romances, the relationship between the staff and the people who are staying at the hotel.
I just don't have it in me.
It's definitely a study in human behavior, and there's lots of underlying commentary on society, plenty of other things. I think it tackles all of these things really well, very tastefully and honestly. It also looks beautiful because of the locations that it's shot in and the hotels that it's at. Let's get into the important lessons that you can learn from this show. Money doesn't buy you happiness. If you are a creative person watching this video, it's likely that you're not doing it or in it for the dollars. You might think that money could change your life though, and it might make your creative output a lot easier. And it could be really game-changing for you in terms of how much time you could give to your art, the doors that it would open up, all of those things. And those things are 100% true. Money could definitely do that for you. White Lotus does a great job of exploring the dynamic between the rich and the poor, the have and the have-nots. So whilst all of these people are at the same space and they're enjoying the same beauty, it's kind of in a different way. We have the guests and then we have the people that are serving them. So there's a real classist feel to what's going on here. This exploration into the class makes us think about general human behavior, how society is set up, and then us as people at our core. We are watching these extremely wealthy and comfortable people who are so deeply unhappy. And this 100% shows you that money does not buy you happiness. It does not solve all of your problems. And in the case of the White Lotus, I think it's actually hindering these people and destroying them. Money doesn't make things easier if you're not in a good place with yourself, which is really funny because the hotel is all about self-care and this facade of, putting yourself first and being relaxed and meditating and all of these things that we think of when we think of a person who's really together. Bringing it back to creatives, we can all feel like it's really impossible to make money or make our creative output our full-time income. We can then focus on this and use it as an excuse because we say that our, goal or our dream is really unattainable. What's the point? And it'd be so much easier if you were a rich kid that already had money, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that not having money is really a superpower. And I think that the White Lotus shows us that because when we look at the people that do have money that are staying at the hotel versus the people that work in it, they're often very different. I think having no money or, not having an extreme amount of money and things being a little bit more difficult gives you grit. It gives you determination. And it also makes you relevant to people who are going to then consume your art. And what is art if it's not to have conversations with people around us and incite that type of engagement with people where they can relate to you and what you're putting out as an artist? These characters are very unhappy. They're very well off, but they're definitely not okay with themselves. And the money is probably exacerbating that. They can easily spend money to fill the void. And somebody like myself, or maybe you watching who isn't as flush as these people, you can't do that. You have to fill the void with something else. And I think that that's what we do as creative people. We look for inspiration. We look to make things, create things so we can cope with how we feel or the world. And I think that's a lot healthier than simply just consuming and buying things like a person with money might be very tempted to do. So if you've been letting your financial situation hold you back as a creative, just remember those characters in the last 3 seasons and how a lot of them weren't really living up to their full potential. They weren't doing what they really wanted to be doing, and they had a lot of self-discovery ahead of them that they might never really do, and that you actually might be in a better position than they are. Our number 2 lesson and takeaway from The White Lotus is knowing your flaws. The reason this show is so addictive and so talked about is because it centers around a group of people who are deeply flawed. We wouldn't keep watching if we didn't root for some of them or relate to them or see ourselves in them or someone that we know or love in them. The show presents us with complex people who have many shortcomings. And newsflash, that's all of us. We are all hiding a part of ourselves from society, and I think that the show does a really good job of bringing that to the surface and showing that there's a lot of carnage and darkness inside all of us. Artists are often known for having some kind of struggle or darkness inside of them and shedding light on that and it becoming a prominent part of their art and their output. I think that art can give you a way to access those things and process them, and this can be really healthy. Where a lot of the characters go wrong in the show is not really unpacking and being able to process and recognize what's going on inside them or what they've been through or what they're longing for, etc., and really facing up to reality. Most of the characters in the show let their flaws rule them. They couldn't take the power back and take it into their hands and have control over their lives. And I think as artists, we have a leg up here. We have a privilege because we can put that anger, despair, sadness, jealousy, whatever it is, or a fundamental flaw within you, you can put that into your art and into your creative output, and it can become a healthy thing. If we don't have these vessels and these ways to express those things, I think it leads to very negative behavior. And this is the behavior that we see a lot of the time in The White Lotus. Lesson 3, be careful who you surround yourself with. In the show, inevitably, every season, we end up with this captive group of people at the hotel, and they are all kind of linked by something that they have going on. A lot of them are kind of like running away from something, especially in this most recent season. People are hiding out in Thailand. They're getting away from previous lives that they've led, trying to start anew or kind of rub the slate clean. This naturally presents us with a lot of colorful personalities and characters. It can be really intriguing to meet people like this or surround yourself with people like this, especially when you are an artist, especially if you're somebody who feeds off other people and puts that into what you're creating. But just remember this, hurt people hurt people. I heard that once and I just could never get rid of that saying in my head because it's so true. Your emotional energy as a creative is very precious, and you really need this for your work and to be able to deal with all the other things you have going on in your life. So whilst these people might be colorful and interesting and, inspirational to your work, or they might be a great study for you to pull something from, just remember to be very careful with who you surround yourself with, because that has an impact on you and the type of energy that you put out. And I think in The White Lotus, we have a lot of people all slumped together who don't really help each other. They don't pick each other up. And I think especially in the last season, we had a group of friends who were kind of posing as friends. And I don't think that the relationships were necessarily very healthy. And as creative people, that can seem like something that's not super relevant, but you really are like just as good as the 5 people that you hang out with. So make sure you're surrounding yourself with a positive creative community. And you're also not falling into the trap of being overly empathetic, because creative people can be very feeling and very sensitive, and they can be very empathetic, which is all great qualities to have. but you can get sucked into someone else's problems, someone else's world, and it can totally derail what your main focus is and your output. And if you want to make great art and you want to, make something that's going to be impactful in the world, or you just want to live a life that's creatively fulfilling, you will likely need to kind of audit who you hang out with and who is around you and make sure that they're not just draining your energy and your focus. I have mentioned him before on the channel, but David Lynch comes to mind here. I feel like he was such a focused person and he was so focused on what he was doing in a positive way. He was focused on making movies, telling stories, and then all of the other art practices that he had beside that. I remember watching a video of him making quinoa in his kitchen. And even that was like this artful thing that he was so passionate and so enthusiastic about it. And he was so consumed by cooking this quinoa. Like I'd never seen anything like it before. And I just thought to myself, wow, I wish I could be that passionate about something so everyday and mundane. David Lynch famously said that negativity is the enemy to creativity. And I think that in The White Lotus, we see that presented to us perfectly because the people are often quite sort of self-consumed and vapid, and I think they could all do with the hobby. Buddhism! Human behavior and interactions are a great thing to inspire and bring into your art, and I think that that's what the director of The White Lotus has done here. No shade to the show at all. And ironically here, I'm saying that everybody in the show could do with a hobby because they all needed something to like put their energy into. And I'm talking about creativity here. But The White Lotus was a great show, amazing show, and something that was brought together by a lot of different creative people. So I am by no means throwing any shade on The White Lotus. But I think that it's important for us when we are consuming things to go, okay, what can I take away from this? What can I learn? And I like to do that with everything that I am consuming online. If I'm choosing to give my time to something, I really want to unpack it and then think how I can better myself or learn something from it. Let me know below if you had any big takeaways from The White Lotus and what you think season 4 will have in store for us all.